If we have completed a particular theme and we decide to remain physical, then you can probably start a new theme. I think you would figure out when you have finished a theme what that's all about, because something else would come into your life synchronistically. Now, one could also say that maybe having a different subject or a change of focus could still be part of the original theme. So, in general, we do choose our entry points and our exit points. And there may be a number of themes we're exploring on that life path from the beginning to whatever the end may be. So it's a little hard to tell whether you're actually changing your theme or whether the idea of having a different theme is part of the overall life path. But it's certainly possible to experience different focuses during a particular life path, whether that's an actual change of theme or the continuation of your overall theme. Little difficult to say.
Great. We receive this question a lot. As we shift between parallel timelines, do we continue the relationships with people that we are close with?
If there's a need to, if there's an agreement to, yes. If there isn't, then no. I mean, it's that simple. We make agreements to experience connection with certain people that may be part of our soul family, or someone that we need to interact with that can teach us lessons and we can teach them lessons to help each other grow. If that agreement has finished, then it may no longer be necessary to experience that person in your life, and they may drift away or something like that. But generally speaking, you're shifting all the time. So obviously, if you're constantly shifting billions of times a second, and the same people seem to still be there in the next moment, then obviously they remain for as long as you have an agreement to interact with them for whatever purposes serve either of you.
So I think the basic question is that as we're shifting into different Earths, two time, parallel realities, you will still be able to interact with people that are on the other Earth. Is basically
for a while. For a while.
For
After a while, probably not. No. If the vibrations become too incompatible, too different, then you may no longer interact with the people that have decided to shift to a completely different version of Earth that is simply not relevant for the version that you're experiencing. So for a while, we can sort of still see all the different choices, all the different mixes. This is the time of choosing. So, but once you have decided which, so to speak, train to get on, then whatever direction that train is going ultimately is going to get farther and farther away from the other tracks that have left the train station. So ultimately, you'll only be on the train that you've chosen. Right now, we can still see and hop aboard all the other trains because they're still close enough as they have left the station. They're not that far apart yet, but eventually they may be too far apart.
I just want to add one more part to this because it's fascinating. So should we actually start saying goodbye to our loved ones if it's clear that they're going to the other Earth? And I'm not saying, that I'm going to one or the other, but it's this to me.
A little hard to tell. That may be hard to tell because somebody can decide to change. And therefore, saying goodbye might be kind of irrelevant if they've decided to change and have a version of themselves in the reality that you've chosen. You don't necessarily know that that's a final goodbye. So I think you just have to trust the agreements, and you can always connect again in spirit, So in that sense, there's never really ultimately a goodbye, because especially if they are part of your soul family, you will meet them again. So I think you just have to let synchronicity be your guide as to what seems appropriate to say to someone, because again, at any moment, they could change their mind and have a version of themselves in the same parallel reality version of Earth that you're in. So you never know.
Great answer.
Given these turbulent times of information, misinformation, disinformation, and timeline splitting, it's understood that it's important to stay centered in one's heart. How does discernment work when you're centered in your heart?
Well, it's like the old saying of picking up on a vibe. You can when you're honest with yourself about what you believe to be true and you're clear about how you may be aligned or misaligned with the idea of positive or negative energy, then it's easier to discern what is vibrationally compatible with what you prefer in your life or not. So it's just like developing a muscle, it's developing a sense, but it takes clarity about yourself, honesty, transparency within yourself. And the more you do that, the easier your senses can pick up on what is either in alignment with what you prefer or either in alignment with either a positive or a negative energy. You just really have to be clear about what you're observing, why you're observing it. Just look at, I mean, it's an old saying, don't necessarily pay attention to what people say, look at what they do. It's the actions that tell you who people are, what they're all about. And by really observing what those actions are all about, then you can decide whether what their behavior is compatible with what you prefer in your life. If you're talking about the discernment of knowing whether a person or not should be somebody that you are interacting with.